The snow was falling harder than usual that Christmas Eve, filling the park with a soft white silence that made every sound echo with a kind of lonely beauty. Amid the glowing street lamps and distant laughter of families celebrating together, a well-dressed man sat on an old wooden bench as if the world had forgotten him. His black suit was dusted with snowflakes, his eyes were red but not from the cold, and the way he stared at the Christmas tree nearby made it seem like he was watching something that used to belong to him, something he had already lost. This was Adam Hale, one of the youngest CEOs in the city, known everywhere for his sharp decisions, bold leadership, and perfect composure. But tonight, not a trace of that powerful image remained. Tonight, he just looked like a man whose heart had shattered quietly in the middle of a holiday meant for joy. Backhand index pointing right before the story continues. If you believe in kindness, humanity, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Thread. Your support keeps these real, heartwarming stories alive. People walked past him without knowing who he was, their minds filled with their own celebrations and families. No one noticed the men who had spent the whole year building empires yet lost the only person who ever made those victories meaningful, his mother. She had passed away only 3 days earlier after a long illness Adam had been too busy to notice creeping closer and closer. He kept telling himself he would visit her tomorrow, but tomorrow never came. Now every achievement, every award, every success felt painfully empty. He had everything money could buy, yet in this moment, he felt like the poorest man alive. He had come to the park simply because it was the one place he used to visit with his mother during Christmas, the one place where her laughter still echoed somewhere in the corners of his memory. But instead of comfort, he found only the cruel weight of regret, pressing down on him harder with every passing second. As he sat there drowning quietly in his own grief, he hardly noticed the small footsteps crunching through the snow. A little boy, barely 4 years old, bundled in a red winter jacket and wearing a knitted hat shaped like a bear, stood in front of him with a paper bag clutched in his tiny gloved hands. The boy stared at Adam with innocent curiosity, tilting his head slightly like he was trying to understand something deeply. Adam wiped his tears quickly, embarrassed to be seen like this by a child, but the boy didn't move away. Instead, he stepped closer, holding the paper bag toward him as though offering a treasure. Adam shook his head politely, managing a faint smile, but the boy continued to look at him with a seriousness that didn't match his size. It was the kind of gaze that seemed to see right through the expensive suit and straight into the brokenness hidden underneath. Then, with a soft, sincere voice, the boy said the words that would stay with Adam for the rest of his life, "Don't cry, mister, you can borrow my mom." The sentence stunned him. For a moment Adam could only stare at the child, unable to process how someone so small could speak with such unexpected compassion. The boy lifted the bag again as if insisting he take it. Adam accepted it gently, noticing it held a small gingerbread cookie shaped like a Christmas star. That simple cookie felt heavier than gold. The little boy smiled, the kind of smile untouched by the world's harshness, and pointed behind him. "My mom is coming. She can make you feel better." Adam followed the direction of the tiny mitten and saw a woman walking toward them, wrapped in a long winter coat, carrying grocery bags, and wearing a warm, gentle smile. She looked beautiful not just because of her appearance, but because she carried an aura of kindness that softened the cold night around her. As she reached them, she touched her son's shoulder lovingly, asking if he was bothering the men. Adam quickly shook his head, assuring her that the boy had been nothing but kind. But the woman looked at Adam a little longer, her eyes scanning the pain he thought he had hidden. Maybe it was a mother's instinct, or maybe it was simple human empathy, but she immediately sensed something was wrong. Without asking intrusive questions, she sat gently on the bench next to him, leaving just enough space to be respectful but close enough to show she cared. Her son climbed onto her lap, leaning comfortably against her as she wrapped her arms around him. Adam didn't know why, but the sight of that simple mother-child closeness, the warmth, the safety, the unconditional love, hit him harder than anything else. It reminded him of all the times his own mother had held him that way, telling him he didn't have to be strong all the time, that he didn't have to carry the world alone. Memories flooded him like an unexpected storm, her voice cheering for him at school events, her proud tears when he got his first job, her gentle scolding when he forgot to eat, her quiet smile every time he returned home no matter how late. And then the final memory, the one that pierced him the most, her tired voice on the phone whispering, "Come visit when you can, Adam. I miss you." He had promised her he would come soon. But soon never happened. Overwhelmed, Adam finally allowed the tears he'd been suppressing to fall. He didn't try to hide them. This time he let himself grieve honestly, rawly, painfully. The woman placed her hand softly on his shoulder, offering comfort without judgment. Her son reached out a tiny hand to touch Adam's sleeve as if reminding him he wasn't alone. In that moment, in a snowy park lit by twinkling Christmas lights, Adam felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: human connection, pure, unselfish, real. They stayed like that for several minutes, the quiet snowfall surrounding them in a peaceful cocoon. When Adam finally found his voice, he thanked the woman for her kindness, explaining that he had just lost someone very dear to him. She listened patiently, offering words filled with empathy but not pity. She told him grief was not a weakness but a sign of deep love, and love was something that never truly disappeared. It stays alive in the memories, in the habits, in the little things that continue even when a person is gone. Her words felt like someone stitching the broken edges of his heart back together. The little boy, unaware of the gravity of the moment but sensing the heaviness, leaned forward and whispered, "It's okay to be sad. Mommy says feelings need hugs too." The innocence, the honesty, the purity of that thought made Adam smile through his tears for the first time in days. The woman eventually stood up to leave, offering him a warm farewell and wishing him healing. The boy waved enthusiastically before holding his mother's hand as they walked away through the softly falling snow. Adam watched them go, feeling lighter than when he had arrived. He realized that sometimes the universe sends healing in the most unexpected forms: a child's kindness, a stranger's compassion, or a gingerbread cookie on a cold Christmas Eve. Backhand index pointing right. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your engagement helps these meaningful stories reach more people who need hope. Before you go, Speech Balloon, tell us in the comments, what was the most heart-touching act of kindness you ever witnessed? The ballroom shimmered with gold light, laughter echoing off marble pillars and crystal chandeliers, yet in the middle of this grand celebration sat a man who felt more invisible than a shadow. Adrian Vale, once known for his sharp confidence and dazzling presence, now sat quietly in his wheelchair, watching the world swirl around him like he no longer belonged to it. His tailored suit did nothing to hide the stiffness in his legs or the weight in his heart. Tonight was meant to be his return to society after the accident that changed everything, but the moment he entered, people had turned away, some out of discomfort, others out of shallow judgment. The whispers, the half-glances, the effortless avoidance, all of it wrapped around him like a cold fog. And in that moment, as music filled the hall and not a single person came close, Adrian realized that sometimes loneliness hurt more than any physical injury ever could. Before we go deeper into Adrian's story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, or the quiet power of a single gesture, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Thread. Your support helps us spread stories that heal. Adrian had once been a man the world admired. He was one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the country, known for his sharp business instincts and adventurous lifestyle. He climbed mountains, sailed across continents, and never feared a fall, until the fall came for him. A car accident had changed his life in minutes, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. But what broke him more than the injury was how quickly people's attitudes shifted. Associates who used to praise him started speaking to him with forced gentleness. Friends he once partied with visited less and less. Even the woman he planned to marry drifted away, blaming stress and timing, but her eyes revealed the truth. Adrian had become a burden. Months of physical therapy and emotional exhaustion had left him feeling like a faded version of himself. His doctor suggested attending social gatherings again, to feel connected, to remind himself that life wasn't over. And so, tonight, he tried. But the moment he rolled into the ballroom, the world reminded him that people feared what they didn't understand and avoided what made them uncomfortable. As beautiful couples danced gracefully across polished floors, Adrian felt like a blemish on an otherwise perfect evening. Whenever he tried to will closer, conversations mysteriously ended. Whenever he looked at a group, they looked away. But there was one person watching him, not with pity, but with the curiosity of someone who saw something special where others saw weakness. Standing by the pillars was Marlene, the cleaning lady who worked part-time in the mansion where the event was held. She wasn't dressed in gowns like the others. She wore her uniform, a pair of worn shoes, and an apron stained faintly with the work of the day. In her arms, she held her baby girl, Lily, a toddler in a tiny red dress, eyes sparkling with innocent joy. Marlene had been instructed to stay in the background and avoid disturbing the guests, but as she watched Adrian's loneliness unfold, her heart ached. She couldn't leave to comfort him, but she didn't need to, because Lily had already noticed. Children rarely see disabilities, only people. Lily squirmed in her mother's arms, reaching toward Adrian with open hands. Before Marlene could stop her, the little girl toddled across the ballroom floor, stumbling slightly but determined. Her soft shoes tapped against the wooden flooring as she approached the men in the wheelchair. The room fell silent as guests turned to watch the tiny figure in red walk toward them and everyone else had avoided. Adrian looked up, startled, as this little child stood before him, giggling and holding out her small hand as though inviting him into her world, a world without judgment, without hesitation, without fear. Something inside Adrian stirred, something warm, something long forgotten. He bent slightly, his voice catching in his throat as he extended his hand toward hers. Lily grabbed it, beaming with pure joy, and tugged softly as if asking him to dance. The room, moments ago filled with judgment, now held its breath. The pianist seemed to understand the moment and shifted into a gentle, soothing melody. With his hand in Lily's, Adrian placed one wheel forward, then another, gently guiding his chair in a slow circle. The child clapped, lifting her arms, twirling in her own little dance, making him laugh softly, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in months. The guests watched, their faces shifting from surprise to awe. Some felt shame for how they had treated him. Others felt humbled by the child's fearless compassion. As they moved together, him rolling, her skipping, the entire ballroom softened. People who had avoided him now stepped aside with new respect, some even smiling. Lily didn't know she had just changed the entire mood of the evening. She didn't know she had given a broken man a moment of healing powerful enough to crack open months of self-doubt. But Adrian knew. And as he looked toward Marlene, he saw tears shining in her eyes. She bowed her head slightly, as if apologizing for her daughter's boldness, but Adrian shook his head gently, mouthing a silent, "Thank you." When the song ended, the applause was real. Not polite, not performed, genuine. Adrian sat still, overwhelmed, as Lily ran back into her mother's arms. For the first time since the accident, he felt seen, truly seen, not for what he had lost, but for who he still was. He realized that healing didn't always come from therapy or encouragement, sometimes it came from the simplest, purest act of connection. As the night continued, people approached him, slowly at first, then more courageously. They asked if he needed a drink, if he wanted to talk, if he was comfortable. Some apologized for ignoring him earlier. A few even asked if they could dance with him, inspired by the little girl's courage. Adrian accepted each gesture with a soft smile, but none touched him the way Lily had. That small hand reaching for his had reminded him that he wasn't invisible. He wasn't broken. He was still someone worth walking and dancing toward. Near the end of the evening, as Marlene passed by him with Lily asleep on her shoulder, Adrian told her, quietly, sincerely, that her daughter had given him back something he thought he had lost forever, the ability to feel hope. Marlene whispered that Lily had always been drawn to gentle souls. And for the first time in a long while, Adrian believed he might still be one. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your small action helps us touch many more hearts. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what did this story teach you about kindness? And so, in a grand ballroom filled with wealth and glittering gowns, it wasn't power or beauty that changed a man's life, it was the outstretched hand of a child who saw not a wheelchair, not a weakness, but simply a human being wanting to belong. Sometimes the smallest hands hold the greatest power to heal. The morning had started like any other for Elena, a 46-year-old cleaning lady who had spent most of her life working in silence, moving through empty halls and quiet rooms that belonged to people who rarely noticed her. But that day, something felt different even before she stepped inside the luxurious penthouse of Daniel Grayson, one of the city's youngest millionaires. The air felt heavier, almost charged, as if it knew a secret she didn't. Elena had no idea that within the next hour, she would stumble into a moment that would change both her life and Daniel's forever. She didn't know her hands would soon be shaking, her breath caught in her chest, and her eyes filling with tears as she stood in front of something no cleaning lady expected to find, an open safe overflowing with stacks of $100 bills. $2 million sitting in front of her, unguarded, untouched, waiting. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and humanity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Thread. It helps spread more heart-touching stories like this. Elena's life had always been shaped by struggle. She had lost her husband 5 years ago to a sudden illness that drained every bit of savings the family had managed to gather over a lifetime. After his passing, her world shrank into a cycle of bills, double shifts, unpaid rent, and the constant fear of failing her 12-year-old son, Matteo. Every dollar mattered, every hour of work was survival. But despite the cracks that life carved into her spirit, Elena carried kindness like an invisible armor. She never complained, never blamed, and never let hardship turn her bitter. She continued working, hoping that someday, life would see her effort and soften its grip. Daniel Grayson, on the other hand, had everything, at least from the outside. His massive penthouse, luxury cars, and constant presence in financial magazines painted him as someone who had mastered life itself. But behind those walls, he lived a silent battle of his own. Daniel had grown up poor, clawed his way to success, and in that climb had lost pieces of himself. Trust didn't come easily to him anymore. The world had disappointed him too many times. The more money he made, the more he doubted the intentions of those around him. He kept people at arm's length, built walls instead of relationships, and lived life like a fortress, impressive, secure, but painfully lonely. That morning, Daniel had rushed out for an urgent meeting, leaving in such a hurry that he didn't even realize he had forgotten to lock the safe in his bedroom. The heavy door stood wide open, exposing rows of neatly stacked cash. Elena entered the room with her usual careful steps, humming softly under her breath, the sound echoing in the quiet space. But when she turned toward the wall to dust the shelves, her eyes froze on the safe. For a moment, she thought she was imagining it. She blinked twice, moved closer, and felt her heartbeat quicken. It was real. The safe was open. And inside, more money than she had ever seen in her life. Her breath shook as she crouched down, staring at the stacks that could change everything for her and her son. $2 million. She could pay off all her debts, find a safe home, get Matteo the treatment he needed for his chronic asthma, maybe even quit working 3 jobs. A single thought whispered through her mind, a dangerous, tempting thought: no one would know. But Elena wasn't built for secrets like that. Her conscience had always been her compass, even when life had nothing to offer but pain. She remembered her husband's final words, "Don't let the world change who you are." And she remembered Matteo, his innocent face, his belief that his mother was the kindest person on earth. What example would she set if she let this money steal her integrity? Slowly, Elena stood up, tears already forming, not from temptation, but from the painful reminder of how hard her life had become that such a thought even crossed her mind. She looked around and found a small notepad on the nearby dresser. Her hands trembled as she picked up a pen. She wrote slowly, her handwriting uneven, her emotion spilling into every word. She placed the note inside the safe, gently closed the heavy door, not locking it, just closing it, and stepped back. She cleaned the room as usual, wiped the counters, folded the blankets, and left without looking back, even though her heart felt heavier than ever. When Daniel returned home hours later, he walked straight to his bedroom to secure some documents he needed for another meeting. The moment he saw the safe door slightly ajar, his blood ran cold. His heart hammered against his ribs as he rushed forward. He expected emptiness, chaos, loss. But instead, he found the money untouched, perfectly stacked, exactly as he had left it, except for the small folded note placed right on top of the cash. He frowned, picked it up, and began reading. As his eyes moved line by line, the room blurred. The note read, "I found your safe open today. I didn't touch anything. I know what it's like to lose what little you have left. I've lost a husband, a home, and almost hope, but I will not lose my honesty. Some of us still believe in doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Elena." Daniel's breath hitched. His throat tightened. He read the note twice, then a third time, as the weight of her words sank in. Someone who had nothing had chosen not to take everything. In a world that had taught him to trust no one, this woman, a quiet cleaning lady with tired eyes and worn shoes, had just shown him a level of integrity he hadn't seen in years. He felt something break inside him. A wall he didn't even know he had been holding up began to crack. Daniel sat down on the edge of his bed, the note trembling in his hand as tears escaped despite his efforts to hold them back. He cried not because the money was safe, but because the kindness he thought no longer existed had found its way back to him through a woman who had every reason to give up on goodness. The next morning, Daniel waited for Elena. When she walked in, surprised to see him home, he approached her with a softness she had never seen in him. He told her he had read the note, and for the first time in years, he spoke with genuine emotion. He offered her not charity, but gratitude. He doubled her salary, paid off her debts discreetly, and arranged medical support for her son. But more importantly, he told her something she had forgotten to believe in: good people still matter. Years passed, and Elena's life changed, not because she found $2 million, but because she found a moment to choose who she truly was, and that choice had changed a millionaire's heart forever. Sometimes, the greatest fortune isn't money, but the impact a single act of honesty can create. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your support helps us bring more soul-stirring stories to the world. Before we end, comment below: do you believe one act of kindness can change someone's life?